You may proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. At 11:10, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank, first of all, I wish to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to thank the Almighty God, thank the Holy Spirit, and thank colleagues who have worked with me over the last year. I want to thank the staff at my office, Ms. Poppy, and others who work with me. And I want to thank all those who continue to assist on a voluntary basis to ensure that we do the best that we can on behalf of the people of Vieux-Fort North. I wish to thank the Leader of the Opposition and all other colleagues. Mr. Speaker, on this last day of April 2020, in the Parliament of St. Lucia, the grandstanding is over. The grandstanding is over, Mr. Speaker. And even though they parade to the banging of the tables and to the praises and loud choruses of their colleagues, the grandstanding is over. There is no more time to grandstand, Mr. Speaker. And while the people of St. Lucia and colleagues in the Parliament clamored for years, for 4 years, over and over again, about our land, about our patrimony, about the proper use of our financial and physical resources, about the inclusion of our people in major policy decisions and the impact on their lives. The people clamored for the focus on health care. The people begged and clamored for a people-focused government. It took an unfortunate crisis, this time, Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 crisis, to expose naked the true nature of this government. The grandstanding is over, Mr. Speaker. And while members opposite continue to laugh and pretend that everything is the same, Mr. Speaker, they have not realized that the people of St. Lucia are not in the mood for grandstanding. The emperor is naked, Mr. Speaker. The emperor has no clothes and no choice but to be exposed. And in the estimates, Mr. Speaker, I will point to you why I believe this is so. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19, as unfortunate as this situation is, has ensured that all of the things, or most of the things, that the people clamored for, that this government was forced to do it. And when I come to the estimates, as I'm leading to it, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that they have no choice if they fall sick, God forbid, or if we fall sick, God forbid. They have no choice but to go to the St. Lucian Hospital. And when we look at the allocations in the estimates, I'm going to connect that to the speed in which they moved to the Owen King EU Hospital. It is because they have no choice. They cannot run to Martinique or to the United States of America or to Europe. So COVID-19, as unfortunate as this crisis is, has forced this government to be like the people in some ways. Like the people. Because God forbid if anything happens to any one of us, including myself and any one of us, it is OK EU, Victoria Hospital, the health centers, Tapion, or whichever local hospital in St. Lucia. So COVID-19, unfortunate as it is, has equalized this. So in the estimates, they had no choice but to do some of the things because of the unfortunate COVID-19. And so all of the people will benefit because what they could not complete in 4 years, they did in 4 days. And I'm coming to that in a while, Mr. Speaker. They paraded their ability to manage the finances of this country by giving great speeches and grandstanding again. If you look at the estimates, all of their grandstanding and boasting, Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 forced them to show their nakedness that only after 3 weeks they could not pay their workers. And so as unfortunate as COVID-19 is, it helped to expose the nakedness of the emperor. And so the Minister for Finance, who has said many times, Mr. Speaker, that he is running the country as a business, and he also said that he is the CEO, the members of cabinet from the board of directors, and the people of St. Lucia are the shareholders. And so if a CEO, Mr. Speaker, after boasting for 4 years that things are nice with the business, there is growth, we have done so many things and so many projects, and there is a crisis, and the CEO comes and agrees with the board of directors, and after 3 weeks decides to cut the pay of its workers, COVID-19 has exposed this Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, the estimates show that not only St. Lucia is in crisis with this COVID-19 disaster, but that is not the only thing. The presentation of these estimates within the COVID-19 situation demonstrates that it's not just St. Lucia that's in a crisis, but the government of St. Lucia itself is a crisis. The government is a crisis. They are not in crisis, you know, Mr. Speaker. The government of St. Lucia is a crisis. And so, Mr. Speaker, before I continue, I wish to make special mention of the people, of some people who did extraordinary work with the COVID-19 assistance situation. And I want to point out the Disaster Preparedness Committee of VA4 North, headed by Mr. Dwayne Edward from Bellevue. I want to point this out because this is an example of a group of selfless individuals who rose to the occasion when we had challenges. Here, together with Mr. Stephen Louis, another member of the Disaster Committee, when we were not getting word about VA4 North and the situation with the bags and so on for COVID-19 for people in the constituency, drove up to Castries, not once, but twice, coming down 9 o'clock in the night, trying to cool the disorder in the delivery of those packages. I don't want to go into the details, but I want to place on record my appreciation as parliamentary representative for the VA4 North Disaster Preparedness Committee, Mr. Dwayne, and all of his members. There are several of them, women, men, young people, a number of them, and I wanted to do that today. I want to thank them. And I want to say the people who benefited, not everyone benefited, obviously, and obviously there may have been certain situations and issues, but I want to thank them. The partisan political issues came up at a particular point. But I'm told, because I was not there distributing stuff, that generally things went well. And the people, there are many people who still need assistance, but I wanted to take a little time to say thank you on behalf of the people. Also, the member for Mico North indicated that there are people who you will not see on television. There are people who possibly gave even more than the NEMO distribution. But you'll not see them on television. They go to the homes of other people in the constituency. I know some of them, a number of them do not want to be named, and they did their part in this COVID-19 situation. So on behalf of the people of Vieux-Fort North, I want to thank those of you from Vieux-Fort North who did that. C'est Jean business Vieux-Fort North là. Lani, nous pas ni dire go business en Vieux-Fort North, mais nous ni chay farmer, pêcheur, et lani go business, moun ki avan pats moduka bay comme ça, and a number of them contributed privately to this cause. Mr. Speaker, this government was never on any course to take St. Lucia to any prosperity since June 6, 2016, when the St. Lucians who voted gave this Prime Minister and Minister for Finance an opportunity to match the smooth talk to solid action. The Minister for Finance, Mr. Speaker, has been on a frolic of his own with the people's money. And while unemployment declined, and they will not say it, owing largely to some projects that were left at the end of the Labour administration, hotels on a growth trajectory with employment. Mr. Speaker, the management of the finances, that management is in crisis. None of the government's major priorities for sustained growth generated from their own ideas have materialized, Mr. Speaker. What they did, they came into government, took some ideas that they found, they changed the ideas radically for the worse, and they implemented them and championed them as if these ideas are the solutions for the problems in St. Lucia. DSH is a prime example. The Minister for Finance prefer, Mr. Speaker, to hand out or to allow access, hand out to many companies and interests millions of dollars, or to allow access to our NIC funds to multi-billionaires, while the people of St. Lucia were not the focus. And so today, after 4 years, what do we see in the estimates? And what do we see in the social and economic review? Increased debt, decreased revenue. Our main sectors, banana exports, decrease. Agriculture generally decrease. Fish landings for the 3rd consecutive year declines. Construction decline. Even construction by the private sector, Mr. Speaker, decline. While there was tourism growth in tourism, we saw, Mr. Speaker, that prices of domestic food, transport and beverages rose in 2019. And what is happening in the other islands? Many times, Mr. Speaker, when things are good, this government says it's them. When things are bad, it is the SLP administration. Let us look at page 22 of the Economic and Social Review. What is happening in the other islands? In the ECCU, Mr. Speaker, let us look at the GDP figures for 2019. Antigua and Barbuda, 4.7% growth. Dominica, 5.7% growth. Grenada, 3.1% growth. St. Kitts and Nevis, 2.5% growth. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 0.3% growth. St. Lucia, 1.7% growth. That is the CEO, the big CEO, Minister for Finance, the head of the business And all of the members of the board of directors, the member for Babuno is now on 2 boards. The Prime Minister's board and the Windfresh board. And we're coming to Windfresh in a while. Mr. Speaker, what about St. Lucia? What about St. Lucia causes, what is it about St. Lucia? And that the Minister for Finance can boast, and all of his ministers can boast, that they have so much growth and so on. And if you just look out of your window, and you look at Grenada, you look at Dominica, St. Kitts, except St. Vincent and the Grenadines, everybody else is doing better than us. But you boast that you have so much growth, and you are so good at management, that after 3 weeks, you are going to ask the public servants to take bonds, and you buy bonds only if you have extra money and you want to invest. But the government forces you to take bonds. And the Prime Minister is so bold-faced, he wants to argue with the leader of the opposition about how people should spend 50% of their salary. If you cut their salary into 50% cash and 50% bonds. And it goes to the attitude of this Minister for Finance. Because the Minister for Finance, Mr. Speaker, does not understand what it is like to live on 50% of a public servant's salary. He does not understand it. He does not understand the kinds of things that people have to do, the expenses for their children, to send their children to school, that they don't have the money, and that they got to where they were as teachers because their parents sent them to school and they went to university, they went to teachers' college, and as a result they want to send their child to university, and therefore they have to take a loan. They must do it. The Minister for Finance does not understand these things. He does not understand St. Lucians. He does not understand how we got from being trade union activists to people who did not have a lunch hour, and how our forefathers, George Charles and company, fought for the workers of St. Lucia to have 1 hour for lunch. And today, they are able to take loans at a bank, and you decide because you have problems, you say, you cut their salary in half. Mr. Speaker, this goes to the crux of the kind of presentation we see in the estimates. And for members opposite, member for Miku North, member for Choiseul, Ancillary Canneries, Soufrière, Dennery South, every single one of them, when they go to their constituency to look at teachers, especially the Minister for Education, how do you look at teachers in the middle of their eyes? How do you do it? How do you look at nurses you boast about who are at the forefront of this fight, and doctors, police? And although after I made my plea around Baudelaire, you moved the authorities moved them closer to the bridge in Dennery South, I still see endless deficiencies there for their treatment. So when I spoke about toilet and they gave me endless blows, when I passed during the night, they shifted them to the bridge. So, Mr. Speaker, how do the members go to the teachers and tell them that you can survive on 50% of your salary? How do they do it? And these people, Mr. Speaker, the members opposite will tell me that they understand St. Lucians. They are now suffering from the malaise and malady of the Minister for Finance. I know the Minister for Finance and member for Migu South does not understand St. Lucians. But for them on the other side to clap when he says we cut in salary by 50% and it's in the estimate, and we're talking about estimates, they clap. They clap. Member for Babuno, your nurses from Babuno, you clapped. When the Prime Minister said, yes, that's the way to go, you clapped. Mr. Speaker, as I said a while ago, the ECCU performance, the Eastern Caribbean Currency Unit members demonstrate that this Minister for Finance has no magic about him. So the other ministers for finance in the other islands can produce growth. As I quoted on page 22 of the Economic and Social Review, this Minister for Finance has no magic, and he His management of this country is a crisis in itself. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 hit us seriously, and the impacts came on or about March 23rd. This government has been reactive. The estimates of expenditure and revenue show no real concern by this government about the new challenges of which they speak. Every country in the world has made major shifts in the expenditure and what they're doing short term, what they're doing medium term. The member for Castries South indicated it, the leader of the opposition. And there's nothing in the estimates that demonstrate that this government understands the challenges of the COVID-19 situation. Up to now, no economic package in the estimates. There are a few line items for COVID-19 expenditure in the estimates, but no economic package in the estimates. There are no major changes. They complain that if things are already contracted, you cannot stop the projects. But they stopped the administrative building that was already contracted in Vieux-Fort. They stopped the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project that was almost completed. They stopped it. They stopped the project for the lighting, the LED lighting. But we have a major crisis, COVID-19, and there's nothing in the estimates that indicate that this government is changing course because of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, in the estimates, we note that the International Monetary Fund will be making monies available to this government for income support. The member for Castries South indicated that it is our suspicion, based on what's in the estimates, that the government intends to use these monies to do other things, infrastructure and so on. Moi vle di, gens qui jouent affectés, people who got affected by the impact of COVID-19 from the constituency of Vieux-Fort North, people who are shop owners, people in the CMOS cooperative, the bus drivers on the Belleville, Grace, Vigé Kako, Opiko, Pierrot route, the people in Foncapeche, the fishers, the farmers, the people who could not go to work because of the state of emergency. I want them to know that in the estimates, there are items in there from the International Monetary Fund as a source, and the loan by the government is meant to assist the income. Avec gouvernement qui a joué une assistance sortie à gros banque mondiale internationale pour aider les gens qui perdent salaire ou bien l'argent qui a joué parce que l'année COVID-19. Moi, je veux tous ces gens qui ont veillé l'argent là, nous qui veillé l'argent là, et moi, je veux tout janvier for North qui jouent affecté veillé que l'argent ça a aller. C'est bus driver qui a couru Vieux-Fort sort Belleville, Vieux-Fort aller à Guas, Vieux-Fort aller Vigé Kako. Pas soutien pour chayer 7 personnes. Là, si posez l'argent pour jouer une assistance, l'argent là. Ça nous a dit, nous avons que le gouvernement veut servir l'argent ça pour faire l'autre bagaille. Nous voulons veiller l'argent ça là. Just like CIP, the Prime Minister spoke about the National Economic Fund. And the people of my constituency, Mr. Speaker, continue to ask me about the CIP funds. What exactly is happening to the CIP funds? And they want me to speak louder about the CIP funds. Because if we have money from the sale of investments which involves our passports, how come this Minister for Finance, the first thing he wants to do is to send nurses, policemen and firemen home with half of their salary? And we have CIP funds. What is happening to it? And Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Finance will not understand that. He does not understand St. Lucians. Many of these homes are made up of 2 public servants, a teacher and a fireman, a nurse and a teacher, nurse husband or nurse wife. Many of these homes are made up of two public servants. And just the news of 50% and 75% cut in their salaries has created shock and horror in many homes in St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. They are beginning to wonder, how are we going to cope? And the Minister for Finance tries to explain moratorium with credit unions and so on. As far as I know, this morning, if there's a letter that came last night or yesterday, there's only one credit union so far, based on documentation that I've seen. And if there is other documentation, I'm willing to concede. The Monrepo Credit Union so far is the only one that has put out something to say exactly how they're going to deal with it. And if public servants have some issue, and there's a problem, and they redeem the bonds, there will be penalties. So after you didn't ask for bonds, government decides they give you half of your salary and half in bonds. They want to decide that. If you have an emergency and you redeem the bonds, you are penalized again, Mr. Speaker. And you want to tell me this Minister for Finance understands St. Lucians? He does not understand the history of St. Lucians, how we built our society. He does not understand that. Or else he would have known how teachers, people who are now lawyers and doctors and so on, how many of them became that in the public service. Many of these people in the public service scrunted and worked hard, went to university, going to night classes of the morn, sacrificing. And today you want to take 75% and 50% of their salary? This Minister for Finance is wicked, Mr. Speaker, in his deliberations on finance. And he tries to defend it. And I want him to go to Miku South and tell the school principals at Blanchard and at Deriso that they can live on 50%. It's not about politics now, you know, UWP or Labour. When you go to St. Lucia Development Bank or the bank to pay your loan, no loan manager asks you if you're UWP or Labour. They want to know if you can pay the loan in 36 months. They don't want to know your politics. So I want the Minister for Finance to go to Deriso and tell the teachers and the nurses and the doctors to go to the bank and tell them they can't pay it because of 50%. Somebody even told me, Mr. Speaker, words that should not be repeated. She was so upset. She asked me, who are these imbeciles who advise the Prime Minister to do that? Who tell him we can live on 25% of our salary? And he defends it. The member for Soufrière, Mr. Speaker, spoke about performance. Now, I've said before, the time for grandstanding in this parliament is over. The member for Babuno and I, former Minister for Agriculture, he's the current Minister for Agriculture. We have a debate going, Mr. Speaker. And though he cannot win this debate because the figures are there, he continues to believe that I'm in a competition with him. I'm not in any competition with the member for Babuno, Mr. Speaker. The records are clear, and what we are doing is we are debating performance. So before the figures were produced in the Social Economic Review, the member for Babuno knows that he has to explain to the farmers. Here is what's happening, Mr. Speaker. Under Head 41, allocations have been made to the Department of Agriculture and so on. But what is important is not the grandstanding in the parliament, you know. The place that I want the member for Babuno to go and grandstand is the farmers who are waiting for the monies from NFTO and from Windfresh. That is where he has to go and grandstand. The farmers who, in week 28, have not gotten paid since week 12. That is where he has to go and grandstand. Where the fertilizer, if farmers don't have money, they don't get the fertilizer. He speaks about problems with Windfresh, Mr. Speaker, and I want to address that. And he says the reason, I heard him in public saying the reason why it is so, because when we were there, Winfresh changed their mandate, and instead of marketing bananas, they're now marketing water and so on. That's the reason why farmers are not getting the money. Mr. Speaker, I went to all of the documents of Winfresh, that's the thing. The documents are available, public documents. And I want him to tell the people of St. Lucia, when was Vinci Fresh established, when all of these were established. And furthermore, he's a board member of Winfresh. He's been so since 2017. I have the exact date. Getting paid board fees. So if there's a problem with Winfresh selling water, you're waiting until farmers cannot be paid to come and talk about Labour Party and Winfresh. That is ludicrous, Mr. Speaker. The member for Babuno, through you, Mr. Speaker, has failed the farmers and agricultural sector in St. Lucia. And this is not the time to go through all of the figures, because there's another debate coming, but all of the figures are in the Social Economic Review. The BPIP, this section, this unit has failed the farmers, and the member for Dennery North has said it. Mr. Speaker, we had a program for the management of black Sigatoka, and I said in this house, and I'll say again, and he challenged me on that, it's in Hansard. You cannot have a successful banana industry if you don't first manage black Sigatoka. Before black Sigatoka, that was a different thing. But since 2010, everything has changed. You have to focus even more on efficiency and pest and disease control. And if you look at all of the reports in the Social Economic Review, they point out to the impact of the black Sigatoka management unit when we were there. Even now, they point out to the failure of quality because of pest and disease control. Anybody who wants to sell bananas in today, anybody who wants to sell bananas must know that you cannot have a successful banana industry if you cannot successfully control black Sigatoka. And they have failed miserably. It doesn't matter how much grandstanding the minister does. They have failed miserably. And that needs to be reviewed, Mr. Speaker. The banana farmers go and grandstand in their meetings and tell them why they can't get their money. Don't come in the parliament and make style. 5 cuttings, they can't get their money, and you want to talk about Winfresh when we were there. You are a board member of Winfresh. Since week 12, farmers cannot get their money. You should take your board fees and put it towards helping the farmers get their money, Mr. Speaker. Is he still collecting all of the board fees? These are the things he has to do. So, Mr. Speaker, the revenue, it shows you that banana exports went down. And next year will come. And next year will come, Mr. Speaker. And since 2010, although the figures have gone down since black Sigatoka, in this term of his parliament, he can never get the figures that we had when I was Minister for Agriculture. Maybe in his next life. Yes. You have another year. Continue. But, Mr. Speaker, this is really about the farmers. Exanuka dia, Mr. Speaker, say, Ministre Agricole Sala, suppose by farmer apologize to the farmers. He said, Mr. Speaker, that by year 3, they will have 40,000 tons of exports of bananas by year 3. He said that they were sending bananas to France. We can never forget that. I'll not let that pass. Just come and say, tell the farmers you are sorry. And you want to blame COVID. Mr. Speaker, on head 41's line 037, livestock development, there is new capital expenditure for the relocation of the Boseju farm. And the source code is IMF RCF 30DBB. Mr. Speaker, isn't this the IMF loan? And I want a member for Babono to answer this. Isn't this the IMF loan which we are talking about, which is supposed to assist with income due to COVID-19? And why are you relocating the Boseju farm? Isn't it because of DSH? So why is this IMF loan paying for what DSH did to us? I just want, yeah, because we're not in government. Yes, we're not in, you heard him, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you didn't hear him. Because we're not in government. Go and grandstand to the farmers. Fisheries, Mr. Speaker. There's no new investment in fisheries. Look at the decline in fish landings. There are no investments in fish aggregating devices. And we will come to that in the other debates. The water resource management section, lines 0 to 9. Mr. Speaker, what is happening with the Viewfort Water Supply Redevelopment Project? COVID-19 has exposed once again that water shortage is a very serious problem. We've had water shortage before, but Mr. Speaker, right now when most people are at their homes, you need water, and we have serious shortage of water, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, of Viewfort North, there's a project which started and continued just around 2016, Mr. Speaker. I have spoken informally to the member for Babuno who is responsible for water, and I have written to the government about Fonkapesh. The pipes are below the ground, the tanks are there, but the government refuses to give the people water. Informally, I have spoken to the minister. He has told me many times, every year we have budget. What's happening to that? I think, yeah, that's important, that's important. But again, Mr. Speaker, the people of Fonkapesh, c'est Jean Fonkapesh là, c'est Sitena Abba Chimea, c'est Tankla là, et gouvernement, pas qu'à mettre gloire. What they have done, Mr. Speaker, as they do in every constituency, the same people who have run elections and who have lost, to tell the people that they will give them the water. Mr. Speaker, they send the pastor who proclaims on a Bible from Viewfort North, who lost against me the last time, but he goes to Fonkapesh and Kadise Muna, Poweri, Mekai Mene Gloa Baizo. Something like water, Mr. Speaker. Isn't this deliberate? To put water in the pipes at Fonkapesh? The pastor has to go and tell people, don't worry about Musa, Mekai Fei Baizo. And some of these people, Mr. Speaker, I give a joke to my friends sometimes. It's a very controversial joke. And all of us have sins and difficulties. But some of these people, Mr. Speaker, I'm not boasting to say that some of these people who pontificate on the Bible and all that kind of thing, I have a strong suspicion that the chariot I'll pass going to heaven, I have sins, will be faster, than the pastor, who run elections. He goes to the communities and says, don't worry about Musa, I will do it for you. I will do it for you. So, Mr. Speaker, I plead with this government to put water in the pipes at Fonkapesh. They have given us no CDP. I don't know about any CDP projects in Viewfort North. They are punishing the people because of me. But give the people the supplies. Give the people the water at Fonkapesh. Mr. Speaker, the COVID response, there's a line item in the for the Ministry of Agriculture for COVID response. And I look forward to how this money will be spent. It is very sad, Mr. Speaker, that up to now, many of the other islands have come up with a food security plan. There are islands like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. These people are actually showing the pictures of crops that are growing since the impact of COVID. In Barbados, imagine, 240 acres. I saw the videos last night. Crops that are in the ground since the advent of the COVID crisis. These people are serious about their food security. And what's happening in St. Lucia? The minister is still planning and trying to grant charge because he believes he has a battle with me. But, Mr. Speaker, it is important for the Minister for Agriculture to get off the soft seats and do the work that he's been paid to do. This COVID crisis requires for urgent response in agriculture, and I hope this capital, this allocation does that. Head 43, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the Department of Infrastructure. And the Opicon to Bellevue Road is another very important aspect of this. This road did not continue, and the last in the last campaign, they successfully caused many people to feel that if there are no roads, no votes. But they went and built a road for DSH costing $13.5 million or so in the estimates. And the road was not continued from Opicon to Bellevue. Mr. Speaker, I urge the Ministry for Infrastructure, the Minister for Infrastructure, to consider these roads, these projects that need completion. The Bamboo Bellevue Road, the Beausejour to Grace Road, and Woodlands and Vielit, the Vigier Road, and all of these roads, Mr. Speaker, were in the Q80 funded project. The income support program for COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, must impact the farmers, the fishers, especially those who sell to the hotels. Mr. Speaker, you have the Vigier Kako Fair Trade Group and the Grace Farmers Group with members who need assistance as a result of this COVID-19. And the proud program for the Opicon people and the works that are happening with Invest St. Lucia in the Grace area need special attention. Mr. Speaker, many of the lots have been surveyed in the Opicon area. Exception Opicon a tout le kamade mwen ki le proud kaifini program sala. I see an allocation in the estimates, and I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the people get some assistance. It is clear that this government, Mr. Speaker, does not fully understand that we are in a crisis. If you look at Head 51, Equity, Social Justice, and Local Government, there are no exciting programs which target the families and the children, the vulnerable people who are obviously stressed and distressed because they have to remain at home due to the state of emergency which arose out of the COVID situation. There are no innovative programs. The social transformation officers have been clamoring for more of this program, but now is the time we should have more of these social programs. But this government is business as usual. More the social safety net for vulnerable people. We have the rise of domestic violence. We have the rise of stressful situations with children. And we need in this period to increase access to resources so that our social workers, people at the health centers, the social transformation officers, can have greater outreach, possibly even employ a few people who have the skills and the qualifications to work with families, because this COVID situation has placed a lot of stress and demands on the social sector. And you can see, Mr. Speaker, why people don't trust this Minister for Finance and don't trust this government, and why this government is a crisis government. The member from Miku North, Minister for Education, Innovation, and Gender Relations, tries every single time to explain why our children should not get the laptops like we were doing. And they're trying to defend it, Mr. Speaker. And I say all the time, it is not in the parliament that you grandstand. So many parents come to me on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker, asking to assist them with devices. Why can the government understand that there are many parents and families in this country who are unable at this time to purchase these laptops, necessary devices? But what should I expect, Mr. Speaker? If the members opposite are clapping and banging when the Prime Minister says that teachers can live on 50% of their salary, then what should I expect? The children in all parts of the constituency, in Bellevue, in Grace, Vigier, Savane, Opicon, Pierrot, many parents are still without these devices. And although the minister boasts about the use of technology in this crisis, there are many parents who tell me that they can't read the thing on their phones, the children cannot get the homework because there's no Wi-Fi, you know, they have difficulties paying the plan and so on. And so this is an injustice which has been done by this government to parents and children in this country. Mr. Speaker, it is the Minister for Finance who used the word mendicants. And so that is how they look at our people. That because you need assistance for laptops, you are mendicants. You are like beggars. And I remind the Prime Minister that this same government and many governments assist other sectors of society in millions of dollars. So the bag of groceries that we give to the people and the laptops, whom we call mendicants, there are other sectors in the society. When they send the request to cabinet, they get millions of dollars in tax breaks, millions. And so we have to ensure that all sectors of the society get assistance, Mr. Speaker. Laptop la yo ka di a, Mr. Speaker. Mon parlement me konon fek ministre éducation ka di akwe di c'était un bon bagay yo doubout laptop programme là. Ek sa mwen ka di a chik toujou la ni pa wan ki ka vini mande mwen assistance parce que après ça yo ni pour mettre travail l'école issue yo ni pour faire un laptop ou bien un tablette. Ade yo pa ni wifi. Comme ça mwen ka di a c'est gouvernement fait ça esprit avec la ni chay moun qui passe à faire travail l'école là parce que yo pas ni un laptop ou bien un tablette. Ça mwen ka di a Mr. Speaker. C'est pas parce que la ni un désastre avec moun brisé commission ou bien si la ni un hurricane avec moun brisé feuillette galvanisée avec plywood. Ça pas veut dire c'est moun ça là pas ni pièce l'orgueil. Ça pas veut dire ça. C'est moun ça là ni l'orgueil mais là ni les bagailles qu'a fait dans la société. Et gouvernement ni pour venir avec assister ces moun ça là. Qui m'a yo ka assister l'autre gens business avec 24 millions de dollars. Qui m'a yo ka bay tout l'autre qualité moun millions de dollars. Mais là pour yo bay gens qui brisé, yo ka kouye yo akodi ces moun ça pas l'orgueil, yo c'est beggar, yo c'est moun qui ka mandé moun bagay. Ça c'est qualité manière gouvernement salarié. Et c'est pour ça à présent moun pas ni la foi en ça Premier ministre l'a fait. Parce qu'il ne peut pas comprendre cette ici, il ne peut pas comprendre nous. Il ne peut pas comprendre qui manière moun kon teacher avec police, à l'école, à les monde dans tous les souhaits pour jouer un degré. Il ne peut pas comprendre ça. Parce qu'il est aisé pour couper ça en 50%. Et qui a dit bit qui manière, la manière moun ça vivre les ça. Il ne peut pas comprendre ces bails ça là. Et tous ces membres parlement qui l'a écrit, yo d'accord ça pour couper ça les moun. Avec pour pas bailler mon assistance. There are so many people, Mr. Speaker, who have lost their jobs, whether it's in the hotel, whether it's because they were braiding hair at the hotel. I have a group of young men from Pierrot, Mr. Speaker, who are great craftsmen, and these people ply their trade next to the government house, Brother Ince and the rest of them, Taka and them. These people have lost money because of COVID-19 and the impact on tourism. These people need assistance. They are not beggars. These people are not mendicants. These people who create all this craft with dry coconuts and so on, they are not beggars. They are working very hard. But we are in disaster. We are in a disaster, Mr. Speaker, and these people need assistance. In a time of crisis, we need to come to the assistance of these people. Schools like the Bellevue Combined School, yes, there are computers, but no IT specialists. And that goes around the constituency. So while a member for Mikunov is talking about all of her innovations, her so-called innovations in education, Mr. Speaker, there are so many gaps and so many wide gaps. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this member for Mikunov, and the time will come very soon when the analysis will be done, this member for Mikunov, when you analyze her performance in education, will go down as the worst minister for education in the history of St. Lucia. No innovation, no direction, no innovation, no direction. Outing fires everywhere, Mr. Speaker. But we will get the time to do that. And Mr. Speaker, what Head 53 is very interesting. What they could not do in 4 years, as I've said before, they found time to do it in 4 days. And I want, Mr. Speaker, to place on record the appreciation of the opposition for the work done by our doctors, our professionals, the cleaners, the people who are moving to OKEU. St. Lucians, who stood up and who raised their hands and said, yes, we can do it. Were it not for COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, this government would still be negotiating, as I'm sure they are still negotiating, with a foreign firm to take over the OKEU hospital. And I repeat what the leader of the opposition has said. The day we get into government and we find any private agreement for any private company to manage our healthcare facility at OKEU or St. Jude, we will take it, Mr. Speaker, using all the legal advice and tear it up. I can guarantee you that, Mr. Speaker. I can guarantee you that. No private concern will take over the OKEU hospital as is being planned by this government. And who moved the OKEU hospital? Who did it? St. Lucians. And why? Because we are in crisis. So the St. Lucians can do it when we are in crisis. But you are actively negotiating with a foreign firm to take it over after the professionals from St. Lucia, the doctors and the nurses and so on, did it themselves. And after all of that, you want to cut their salary by 50%. You have no shame, Mr. Speaker. This Minister for Finance has no shame, and the members opposite. You're sound, you're pani logay, you're pani ne. No shame, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the people have not been the priority of this government. And so because of COVID-19, COVID-19 forced the government to make the people the priority. And so they had to move to OKEU hospital, Mr. Speaker. I say to you, these people are not serious and they do not understand the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, for sport and youth development, I see national sporting infrastructure as the only major capital project. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that there are other programs that are funded. I urge the government, Mr. Speaker, to consider increasing programs for young people, especially in this time of this COVID crisis. The Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, created and birthed a crucible for sporting and modern sporting infrastructure in St. Lucia. All of this fuss about sporting infrastructure, if you look at the landscape of St. Lucia, it is the St. Lucia Labour Party which took sports in St. Lucia to another level and to the international level, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member,
So,
just be reminded, I'm just informing you, you have 10 minutes in which to complete.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this thing about sporting infrastructure and building grounds and putting rubber turf and all of that, the jury is out, Mr. Speaker. And this is not the kind of development that is suited for St. Lucia and for sports in this country. All of the research shows the cancer effects. All of the research shows the use of this thing. But this government is gung-ho because they have given $32 million to a company to go around the country to build this artificial turf sporting infrastructure. But, Mr. Speaker, it is not grandstanding. It's not a time for them to grandstand because the people know that in various parts of the country, significant investment was made in sporting infrastructure by the St. Lucia Labour Party. An international recognition came to St. Lucia because of the foresight of the St. Lucia Labour Party with the quality of sporting infrastructure that we built. So we await all the rubber turf that you can't take your little 5-year-old to to run on at a certain time of day, and all of the experts from Canada are saying that it's carcinogenic, the materials that are in there. But I guess they don't care because somebody has to, a few $1 million have to go somewhere. And you do all of that and tell me that a public servant can live on 50% of their salary. Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Lucia have reached a stage where they do not trust this Minister for Finance. The people of St. Lucia have reached a stage where the grandstanding in the Parliament makes no sense. The people in St. Lucia have reached a stage where the drama in the Parliament does not pay the banana farmers in Bellevue and in Vigier and in Grace at Vielit. The people in St. Lucia have reached a stage where the great pineapple farmer, Moses from Grace, when he needs to dispose of his produce and his commodities because of COVID-19, can't find a government that has things in place. The people of St. Lucia have reached a stage, Mr. Speaker, where you have the major sectors of the economy are led by people who prefer to just come here and to boast and to say they are doing well. But when crisis erupts, they are shaking in their feet and they cannot prove, Mr. Speaker, that they can deliver to the people of St. Lucia. The people of St. Lucia have reached a stage where they are frustrated. The people in my constituency who could not go to work in the stores for a week, for 2 weeks, because of the government state of emergency, they have reached a stage where they're asking themselves, where all the money gone? Where is all the money the government said that they have? Where is all the progress? Where is all the money that Cabot is using to build golf courses? Why is it our NIC that the back of NIC looks like the government wants to bend it? Why? Where are all the geniuses in the government who paraded and said 5 to stay alive? They don't need VAT. Where are they today? When the people need them. When the people who lost their jobs in the hotels and the farmers and the fishers need their government. Instead, what they get is a government, a Minister for Finance, who's ready to kick them and tell them you can live on 50% of your salary. This government is not ready. This government has not said that it's going to reduce the level of its cabinet, the size of its cabinet in the COVID crisis, the largest cabinet ever in the history of St. Lucia. If we are in crisis, you must lead and say, okay, let's collapse some of the ministries for the next 6 months because we are in crisis. You have not done that, but you want to collapse the salaries of some of the hardest working people in this country. You are heartless, shameless. And I want the nurses and doctors and firemen to look at you in your eyes and tell you so. The police that you say you love so much, you want to cut their salaries by 75%. Mr. Speaker, this is a heartless government. This is a Minister for Finance who does not know what he's doing to benefit the people of St. Lucia. He knows what he's doing when he has to give all the millions of dollars to all of the different groups. But now that we are in crisis, he has panicked. The government is panicking and they are taking out their rage on the workers of this country. And I wish at this point, Mr. Speaker, before I go, to remind the country and to remind the Parliament that tomorrow is May Day. And May Day is a time when the workers of this country take a bow, because it is primarily the workers of this country, through their trade unions in the 1930s, who established a functioning democracy and an active participatory democracy in St. Lucia. The political parties came out of that, the St. Lucia Labour Party and George Charles. And UWP took some of it, married it with other things, and in 1964 came in. So tomorrow is a very important day, and I want to salute on behalf of the opposition, on behalf of the opposition leader, on behalf of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I want to salute all workers in St. Lucia, and I want us to give the workers a round of applause and a salute, Mr. Speaker. I noticed they didn't clap this time for the workers because they want to take their salary 50%. So I urge the workers, and I tell the workers of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, that the St. Lucia Labour Party is a workers' party. The St. Lucia Labour Party will look after their interests. The St. Lucia Labour Party will never cut 50% of their salary. Never cut 50% of their salary. And I wish the workers of St. Lucia well. And I say to them, Mr. Speaker, that we will be here to ensure that the wasted years of this government will be replenished. And the vindictiveness of this government, the wasted years of this Minister for Finance. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank again my constituents, all those from Bellevue or Grace or Piero, Vijay Kako, Savan, all of the people who have stood by me, even when pastors and others who profess to have the Bible in their hands came and gave them and told them lies. I thank them, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues, and I want to sit on this point. The grandstanding is over. The emperor is naked, and the Minister for Finance has been exposed for all of the mismanagement and the crisis that his government is. Not only that we are in crisis with COVID-19, but this government is a major crisis. And I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the people of St. Lucia will see this and remove this government when the time comes with the same fervor and energy that this government is down pressing and pressurizing them every single day. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.